In the bustling city of New York, a young man named Alexander Alex Cade sat in his small apartment, typing away at his computer. A tech genius with a penchant for coding and a love for the quiet life. Alex was used to the ordinary rhythm of his existence. He wasn't wealthy or famous, nor did he have any extraordinary talents that would set him apart from the masses. He was content with his job as a freelance software developer, his routine, and the comfort of his own space. That all changed one evening when his phone buzzed, breaking the silence of his room. The message that flashed on the screen was unlike anything he had ever seen before. It was an official communication from the Galactic Federation, the governing body that managed interplanetary relations across countless worlds. The subject line was simple, but chilling. Marriage proposal. Alex Cade. His heart skipped a beat. It seemed like a joke at first, some kind of strange spam, but the message was detailed, formal, and incredibly specific. According to the message, Alex was being requested, no, required, to marry a princess from the planet Shore, a distant world on the edge of the galaxy. The princess's name was Shayana, and her people were facing a dire threat from a hostile alien race. Alex stared at the screen, his mind reeling. This had to be a mistake. There was no reason for someone like him, a regular human, to be involved in something so extraordinary. He hadn't even heard of Jor before, yet the Federation's message insisted that this marriage was vital for the survival of the galaxy. As absurd as it sounded, Alex read on. The marriage between him and Princess Shayana wasn't just some random arrangement. It was a political alliance. The Jorian Empire was on the brink of collapse due to an ongoing war with the Trithians, a ruthless alien race bent on conquering everything in their path. The Federation believed that an alliance between Earth and Jor could turn the tide of the war. Alex's thoughts raced. Was this some kind of elaborate hoax, or was this real? His fingers trembled as he scrolled through the rest of the message, which explained the reasoning behind the proposal. Apparently, Earth had been chosen because humans were believed to possess unique genetic traits that could help tip the balance in the war. Alex's heart sank. How could he, an ordinary man, be the answer to such a galactic crisis? The message concluded with a stern warning. If he refused, there would be dire consequences for both Earth and Jor. The Federation was not asking. It was a demand. Alex sat back in his chair, unable to comprehend what he had just read. This couldn't be happening. He had heard of alien encounters and government cover-ups, but nothing like this. He was not prepared to marry some alien princess, no matter how important the cause. But then, a new message arrived, this time from a face he could only describe as otherworldly. The screen flickered, and a woman's face appeared, Shayana herself. Her bioluminescent skin shimmered softly in the dim light, her eyes glowing with a fierce intensity. She was both regal and intimidating, a stark contrast to the simplicity of his own life. "Hello, Alex Cade," she spoke, her voice clear and strong. "You may not understand yet, but you will soon. The fate of our worlds depends on you." Alex's mind raced again, trying to process everything at once. This was real. This was happening. And somehow, it was all centered around him. The next day, Alex found himself aboard a spaceship, heading toward the distant planet of Jor. He had no idea how he got there so quickly, but the Federation had arranged everything. The moment he stepped on board, he was ushered into a sleek, futuristic ship that seemed to hum with energy. The walls shimmered with a strange iridescent glow, and the crew members were all aliens of various shapes and sizes, their eyes watching him with curiosity. The captain, a tall, silver-skinned being named Zorith, barely acknowledged Alex's presence, busy with the ship's controls. Despite the overwhelming situation, Alex couldn't help but feel a wave of awe. Space travel, something he had only dreamed of as a kid, was now his reality. As the ship surged forward, the stars outside blurred into streaks of light, and the vastness of space stretched endlessly before him. But soon, The excitement faded, replaced by the weight of what lay ahead. His thoughts kept returning to the message from Shayana, the Shorian princess. He couldn't wrap his mind around it. Why him? What made him? A simple earthling, worthy of marrying a princess. As the hours passed, his doubts grew. He was so far from home, hurtling through the galaxy, and all he could do was wait to meet the woman who would soon be his wife. When the ship finally arrived at shore, Alex was greeted by a magnificent sight. The planet was a swirl of vibrant blues and greens, its surface dotted with vast cities that seemed to be built into the planet's natural landscapes. The architecture was unlike anything he had ever seen: towering spires, intricate domes, and floating platforms. But beneath its beauty, there was a sense of urgency in the air. Jor was a dying planet, its resources drained and its people on the brink of extinction. As the ship touched down on the planet's surface, Alex felt a chill run down his spine. The palace, where he was to meet Shayana, loomed before him, its towering walls a blend of organic shapes, with vines and flowers climbing up the sides. The atmosphere was heavy, as if the weight of an entire civilization's fate rested on the upcoming marriage. The moment Alex entered the palace, he was met with the sight of Shayana. She was even more stunning in person than she had appeared on the screen, standing tall with smooth, glowing skin that shimmered in the palace's dim light. Shayana's features were sharp, elegant, and otherworldly. Her silver hair cascaded down her back, and her eyes, deep and filled with the wisdom of her people, met his with an intensity that made Alex feel both small and important at the same time. "Welcome to Jor, Alex Cade," she said, her voice calm yet commanding. "I know this is difficult for you to understand, but I assure you, your presence here is not by chance." Alex stood frozen, unsure of what to say. He had so many questions, but they all seemed to get stuck in his throat. Shayadna continued, her gaze unwavering. "My people are in peril. The Trithians, our enemies, have waged war on us for centuries. We are fighting a losing battle. The Federation believes that the union between us can turn the tide, bringing our two worlds together to stop them." She paused, and Alex could see the sorrow in her eyes. "But there is more to this than just politics, Alex. Your people, humanity, possess something our species does not. And you, more than anyone, are the key to saving us all." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Alex's mind whirled with questions. What did she mean? How was he supposed to help? And why was he the one who could make a difference? Nothing about this situation made sense, but as he looked into Shayana's eyes, he knew there was no turning back. His life, and the fate of two worlds, had just changed forever. As the days passed, Alex began to understand just how dire the situation was on Jor. Shayana, though regal and composed, was burdened with the weight of her people's survival. She spent long hours explaining the history of her planet, of the Zorian Empire that once spanned across the stars. Their civilization had been one of the most advanced, full of wisdom and technology that had helped maintain peace in the galaxy. But now, after centuries of warfare with the Trithians, everything was crumbling. Jor's resources were almost depleted, their cities were in ruins, and their people, once proud and strong, were slowly being wiped out by a relentless enemy. Alex listened intently as Shayana spoke of the Trithians, a vicious alien race that had no regard for life. They were driven by a thirst for power and expansion, sweeping through planets and civilizations without mercy. The Jorian resistance had held out for as long as they could, but now they were on the brink of extinction. The situation had grown so dire that the Jorian Council had reached out to the Galactic Federation for help. The Federation, desperate to maintain balance in the galaxy, had seen one possible solution: a marriage between a Jorian princess and a human, someone from a world that had remained neutral in the conflict. Alex was still grappling with the enormity of it all. He wasn't a warrior, wasn't even a politician, just an ordinary man who had never dreamed of anything this grand. But Shayana's explanation, though unsettling, made him realize how deeply the marriage was tied to the survival of two worlds. As the princess spoke, she revealed that the Jorian people believed there was an ancient prophecy, one that spoke of an alliance between a human and a Jorian royal that would unlock a power strong enough to defeat the Trithians. It wasn't just a political arrangement. It was their only hope for victory. But what did she mean by unlocking a power? What did this prophecy truly entail? These questions haunted Alex, and the more he heard about Jor's plight, the harder it became to deny the importance of his involvement. However, as his days in the palace stretched on, Alex began to notice something else, a strange, subtle connection growing between him and Sheagna. She was not the cold, distant princess he had expected, but a woman who carried the hopes and fears of her people. Her strength and determination were undeniable, but so was the vulnerability she tried to hide beneath her regal exterior. There were moments, in the quiet corners of the palace, when Alex caught glimpses of her real self, a person who longed for peace, for a future where her people could thrive once more. It was during one of these quiet moments that Sheagna took Alex aside and led him to a chamber deep within the palace. It was there that she showed him something that would forever change his understanding of the situation. On a pedestal in the center of the room rested an ancient artifact, an intricate, glowing sphere that hummed with an energy Alex couldn't explain. Sheagna explained that this was the heart of Jor, an artifact passed down through generations of her people. It was said to hold the key to the prophecy, a power that could turn the tide of the war. But, as she revealed, it could only be activated by a union between a Jorian and a human, specifically, the marriage between Sheagna and Alex. Alex stared at the glowing sphere, his mind racing. He had always been a logical person, someone who relied on facts and evidence, but nothing about this situation made sense. Yet, as he looked into Sheagna's eyes, he realized that this was no longer just about politics. This was about survival, for both of their worlds. And maybe, just maybe, it was about something deeper than either of them had expected. As the days passed, Alex became more entrenched in the bizarre reality of his situation. The palace, though beautiful and full of advanced alien technology, felt like a prison. His life was no longer his own, and the weight of his marriage to Sheagna weighed heavily on him. But as he spent more time with her, something began to change. He wasn't just learning about the Jorian people and their struggles. He was beginning to understand his own role in this strange and dangerous war. Sheagna had explained that the heart of Jor, the ancient artifact, had the power to turn the tide against the Trithians, but only if he, as a human, played a crucial part in unlocking it. The marriage wasn't just for show. It was the key to unleashing that power, a power that had been dormant for centuries. The more Alex learned about the heart, the more he realized that he was no longer just an unwilling participant in an intergalactic political game. He was, somehow, a vital part of the galaxy's survival. But that realization came with its own set of complications. Alex's body was changing. He began to notice strange shifts in himself, subtle at first, like an increased sense of awareness and heightened reflexes. He could hear sounds that once seemed distant, and his vision sharpened in ways he couldn't explain. It was as if something inside him was awakening, as if the connection between humanity and Jor was reaching into his very DNA. One evening, as he was walking through the palace gardens, he met with Sheagna in a quiet, secluded spot. The palace gardens, lush and full of exotic plants, were a serene escape from the tension inside the walls. Sheagna was waiting for him, her glowing skin shimmering in the soft light of the twin moons above. She greeted him with a warm smile, though her eyes still carried the weight of the responsibility that pressed down on her shoulders. "Alex, how are you feeling?" she asked, her voice soft but full of concern. Alex hesitated before answering. "I don't know. I've been having these strange feelings. It's like something inside me is changing." Sheagna nodded, her expression thoughtful. "It's the bond. It's growing stronger between us, and it's affecting you in ways you can't fully understand yet." She paused, watching him closely. The heart of Jor reacts to the union. It taps into the potential hidden within both of us. But it's not just about the artifact, Alex. Your people, humans, are the key to defeating the Trithians. Your physiology, your ability to adapt, is unlike anything we've seen in the galaxy. And the union, your bond with me, is what will awaken that potential. Alex stood still, trying to digest her words. He had heard about the power humans had that was different from any other species in the galaxy, but he never imagined it would apply to him. He was just a regular guy, or so he thought. Shayatna's eyes softened as she took a step closer to him. "I know this is difficult for you to understand. This is not the life you chose, but the bond we share now. It's something that has the potential to save both of our worlds. You are more than just an Earthling. You are a part of something much bigger." Alex looked into her eyes, and for the first time since he arrived on Jor, he saw the full weight of the future they both had to face. There was fear in her eyes, but also hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, their union could be the salvation both their worlds so desperately needed. As the cool wind whispered through the garden, Alex realized that this was no longer just about surviving. It was about fighting for something greater than himself, fighting for a future where he and Shayatna could build something together. Even if that future seemed impossible, even if he didn't understand all the details, he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't walk away from this. The fate of two worlds rested in his hands. As the days grew shorter, Alex and Shayatna found themselves facing even greater challenges. The Trithians were growing more aggressive, and the news from the front lines of the war was grim. Jor's cities were being bombed, its forces stretched thin. The Shorian resistance, though valiant, was losing ground, and the Federation's resources were too stretched to offer much support. The marriage was no longer just a political move. It had become a desperate necessity. Alex had started to accept the gravity of his situation, but that didn't mean he was comfortable with it. The strange changes happening to his body were accelerating. His senses were sharper, his reflexes quicker. He could hear distant conversations, feel the presence of people long before they entered a room, and even see the smallest details that would have been invisible before. But it wasn't just his physical abilities that were changing. There were flashes of visions, strange, cryptic images of battles, of Jor's history, of its future. Sometimes it was as though he could hear the voices of long-dead Jorian kings, their whispers urging him to act. He didn't know what it all meant, but it was clear that the connection between him and Shayatna was growing stronger, as if their bond was unlocking something deep within him. One afternoon, in the heart of the palace, Alex and Shayatna stood before the heart of Jor again. The glowing sphere seemed to pulse with energy, its light flickering in response to their presence. Shayatna turned to Alex, her face serious. "The time has come," she said quietly. "We must begin the ceremony. The bond between us must be sealed before it's too late." Alex swallowed hard, his throat dry. The ceremony, though he still didn't fully understand it, was meant to fully unite them, mind, body, and soul, so that they could unlock the full power of the heart of Jor. It was a tradition that had been passed down for generations, but no one alive had seen it used in centuries. The artifact would respond to their union, activating the latent power within Alex's human physiology and connecting it to Shayatna's Jorian heritage. But there was something else, a danger that Shayatna hadn't fully explained. The power within the heart of Jor was immense, and it would require both of them to wield it carefully. If they failed, it could have catastrophic consequences, not just for Jor, but for Earth as well. The Trithians were aware of the heart's power, and they would stop at nothing to destroy it before the union could be completed. Shayatna's eyes were filled with determination, but there was a flicker of concern behind them. "Are you ready, Alex?" she asked. He could hear the weight of her question, the fear in her voice despite her calm demeanor. It was a question that had no easy answer. Alex had been thrown into this world without warning, without preparation, And now, everything he thought he knew was being tested. But as he looked at Shayana, he saw the same uncertainty in her eyes. She wasn't sure of the outcome either. But what choice did they have? The war was losing ground with each passing day, and if they didn't act now, they might never have another chance. With a deep breath, Alex nodded. "I'm ready." Shayatna's expression softened, and she reached out to take his hand. Together, they stepped closer to the heart of Jor, its light growing brighter with each movement. As their hands met, the sphere hummed, and a surge of energy rippled through the room. Alex felt something deep within him awaken, a force he couldn't describe, pulsing through his veins. The bond between him and Shayana had been formed, and the fate of two worlds now rested on their shared strength. As the ceremony began, the air around them crackled with energy, and Alex knew one thing for certain. There was no turning back. The moment Alex and Shayana's hands touched the heart of Jor, the entire room seemed to explode with energy. A blinding light enveloped them, and for a split second, Alex felt as though his body was being torn apart and put back together again. His mind raced, his senses overloaded. He could feel every fiber of his being vibrating, every heartbeat pounding like thunder. And then, as suddenly as it had started, the light faded. The room settled into an eerie silence. Shayana stood beside him, her breathing shallow, her face pale but determined. Alex could feel the energy still coursing through his body, an unfamiliar yet powerful force. It was as though the heart of Jor had unlocked something deep within him, something he didn't understand but knew was vital. What just happened?" Alex gasped, his voice hoarse. Shayana's eyes were wide with a mix of awe and fear. "We've unlocked the power," she whispered, "but it's more than we anticipated. The bond between us is stronger than I ever imagined." Alex glanced down at his hands, still tingling with the aftereffects of the ceremony. His body felt different, like he was connected to something far greater than himself. But there was also a strange heaviness in the air, as though the universe was holding its breath. "What do we do now?" he asked, his mind still reeling from the intensity of the moment. Shayana took a step closer, her voice steady despite the chaos they had just experienced. "Now we must prepare for what's coming. The Trithians will know what we've done. They'll sense the power. They won't wait for us to fully harness it. They'll attack, and they'll come for us first." Her words hit Alex like a punch to the gut. The Trithians were already dangerous, but if they knew the heart of Jor had been activated, they would stop at nothing to destroy it. They would destroy everything. "So what's the plan?" Alex asked, his voice firm despite the fear growing inside him. Shayana gave him a sharp, calculating look. "We need to take the heart of Jor to the Jorian Citadel. It's the only place where we can fully unlock its power. But the journey there will be perilous. The Trithians will have spies everywhere, and they won't hesitate to strike at anything that moves." Alex nodded, his mind racing. The fate of two worlds rested on a single journey, one that could either save them or destroy them completely. "I'm ready," he said, though a part of him still felt uncertain. Shayana didn't seem surprised. She had seen the change in him since the ceremony, seen the power that was awakening within him. "We must move quickly," she said, leading him toward the door. "The longer we wait, the more vulnerable we become." As they walked through the corridors of the palace, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The air felt thick with tension, and every shadow seemed to hold a threat. It wasn't just the Trithians they had to fear. There were those within Jor who would do anything to seize the heart of Jor for themselves. Alex and Shayana had to be careful who they trusted. The journey ahead was fraught with danger, and the stakes had never been higher. But in that moment, as they stepped outside the palace into the cool night air, Alex couldn't help but feel that something had shifted within him. The power that surged through him was unlike anything he had ever known. And though he was terrified, he also felt a strange sense of purpose, a pull toward something bigger than himself. It was as if the universe had chosen him for something great, and he couldn't turn back. Together, he and Shayana would face whatever came next, and they would fight. For their people, for their worlds, and for each other. Alex and Shayana hurried through the darkened streets of the palace city, their every step filled with urgency. The tension in the air was palpable, thick with the threat of an imminent attack. The palace, once a symbol of Jor's great power, now seemed like a fragile fortress. Every corner they turned, Alex felt eyes on them, as if unseen forces were watching, waiting. They had to move fast, but they couldn't afford to make a single mistake. As they reached the edge of the city, the sound of distant explosions echoed in the night, and Alex's heart raced. The Trithians were already on the move. "We need to get to the hidden transport docks," Shayana said, her voice sharp and filled with authority. "There's a shuttle waiting for us. It will take us to the Citadel." Alex nodded, his mind working in overdrive. He had no idea how they would get past the Trithian forces that were sure to be lurking, but Shayana had been trained for situations like this. She was a warrior in her own right, a leader of her people, and despite the uncertainty, Alex trusted her with his life. They reached a narrow alley that led to the back of the palace grounds. Shayana motioned for Alex to stay low and move quickly. They slipped into the shadows, and for a moment, everything was silent. But then, the unmistakable hum of an approaching craft broke the quiet. Shayana's eyes narrowed as she turned to Alex. "We're not alone," she whispered. Without another word, they darted behind a nearby structure, hoping to stay out of sight. The craft hovered overhead, its lights sweeping over the city as it searched for anything out of the ordinary. Alex's heart pounded in his chest, and he could hear his breath in his ears. The Trithians had a relentless way of hunting down targets, and they wouldn't hesitate to strike if they found even a hint of a threat. The craft passed overhead, its searchlight just inches away from where they were hiding. Alex held his breath, and for a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Then, as if by some miracle, the craft moved on. Shayana exhaled a soft sigh of relief. "That was too close," she muttered. They waited a few more minutes, then moved again, this time with more speed. The shuttle wasn't far now, but they were still in danger. The closer they got, the more Alex could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. This wasn't just a daring escape, it was the beginning of a war. If they didn't get the heart of Jor to the Citadel and unlock its full power, there would be no stopping the Trithians. The galaxy would fall into chaos. They reached the shuttle, an elegant craft designed for speed and stealth. Its sleek, silver surface blended perfectly with the night sky. As they climbed aboard, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. The shuttle's engines hummed to life, and they shot into the sky, leaving the city of Jor behind. As the planet shrank in the distance, Alex could see the swirling storms on its surface, a reminder of the planet's dying state. The Trithians were already at war with Jor, but there was something more at stake than just this planet. Shayana turned to Alex, her face serious. "Once we reach the Citadel, we'll face even greater dangers. The heart of Jor is the key to our survival, but there are those who want it for themselves. We can't trust anyone, not even the Council." Alex nodded. He could see the resolve in her eyes. She wasn't just fighting for Jor, she was fighting for her people, for everything they had lost. And now, they were in this together, with the fate of two worlds resting on their shoulders. As the shuttle zipped through the stars, Alex felt a strange calm wash over him. Despite the chaos, despite the fear, he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't back down now. He was in this to the end, and no matter what happened, he would stand by Shayana. Together, they would save their worlds. And together, they would fight the Trithians. As the shuttle sped through the dark expanse of space, Alex stared out at the endless stars. The rhythmic hum of the engines was the only sound in the cabin, but his mind was far from quiet. The weight of what they were about to do pressed down on him, and the realization that the fate of two worlds rested in their hands was almost too much to bear. Shayakna sat next to him, her posture straight, her face unreadable. But Alex could see the tension in her eyes. She wasn't just the princess of Jor anymore. She was a leader, a warrior, and the pressure of everything she carried was evident. "We're getting closer," Shayakna said softly, breaking the silence. "We'll be at the Citadel within the hour." Alex nodded, but his mind was racing. "What exactly happens when we get there?" he asked, unable to keep the uncertainty from his voice. Shayakna looked at him, her expression still serious, but there was a flicker of something, hope, perhaps. "Once we reach the Citadel, we'll have to access the heart of Jor's core. It's hidden in a chamber deep within the Citadel, away from anyone who might try to steal it. Only those who are bonded with the heart can activate its power." Alex's heart skipped a beat. "And we're the only ones who can do it, right?" She nodded. "That's why we can't let the Trithians reach us first. The heart will recognize us, but if they take it, they'll use its power for destruction, not salvation." Alex clenched his fists. He had no idea how he was supposed to unlock the heart's power, especially when it was tied so deeply to Shayakna, but he wasn't about to back down. The entire galaxy depended on them. The shuttle made a sharp turn, and the lights from the Citadel came into view. The massive structure was a labyrinth of towering spires and crystalline towers, glowing with the light of its ancient energy. It stood like a fortress, isolated and secure, a symbol of Jor's past and its future. "There it is," Shayakna whispered. "The Citadel. The heart is within." As they approached, Alex could feel his heart race. The reality of what they were about to do hit him all at once. It wasn't just about saving Jor anymore. It was about saving everything. The heart of Jor was the key to turning the tide of war, and they couldn't afford to fail. The shuttle slowed as it approached the docking bay, and Alex noticed several ships nearby, all heavily armed. "We're not the only ones here," he muttered. Shayakna's eyes narrowed. "The council will be waiting for us. Some of them may be loyal to me, but others," she hesitated, "others will do whatever it takes to seize the heart for themselves." Alex's stomach tightened. It was clear that even among Jor's own people, there were those who couldn't be trusted. They had to be careful. As the shuttle landed and the hatch opened, a cold, unsettling wind greeted them. The Citadel was ancient, its halls lined with technology that seemed out of place in the modern world. Shayakna stepped out first, her posture regal despite the uncertainty she must have been feeling. Alex followed closely behind, his senses heightened, every sound amplified in the eerie stillness. "Stay close," she warned. "If anything feels wrong, we move fast. Don't trust anyone." Alex nodded, his mind focused on the mission. They had to find the heart, and they had to unlock its power before the Trithians or anyone else could stop them. As they walked deeper into the Citadel, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The silence around them was oppressive, and every shadow seemed to move with a life of its own. There were eyes on them, and they weren't just from the Trithians. They were from the very heart of Jor, from those who had watched the planet crumble, and those who would stop at nothing to seize its last hope. They had no idea what dangers awaited them, but Alex knew this much. Whatever came next, they had to face it together. The future of Jor and of Earth depended on it. The deeper Alex and Shayakna ventured into the Citadel, the more oppressive the silence became. The towering ancient walls seemed to close in on them, and the feeling of being watched only intensified. It was as if the entire Citadel, with its centuries-old secrets, was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Shayakna's pace quickened, her eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. She wasn't just on high alert, she was ready for whatever lay ahead. Alex stayed close behind, his senses heightened, every step echoing through the vast, empty halls. Despite the growing tension, there was something strangely exhilarating about the journey. It felt like they were on the edge of something monumental, something that could change the course of history. They reached a massive set of doors, adorned with intricate carvings and glowing symbols. This, Sheanat explained, was the entrance to the chamber where the heart of Jor had been kept for generations. Once we enter, she said quietly, we'll be inside the most protected place on Jor. Only those who are bonded with the heart can access it. But there's a chance that someone we don't trust, could try to stop us. Alex nodded, his jaw clenched. He had known this would be risky, but he hadn't fully understood the danger until now. They weren't just facing external enemies, they were up against betrayal from within. As the doors slid open, they stepped into a vast, dimly lit room. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, and on it, glowing softly, was the heart of Jor. Its otherworldly light filled the space, casting long shadows across the stone floor. The moment Alex laid eyes on it, he felt a surge of power unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was as if the heart was calling to him, recognizing him as its rightful wielder. "We're here," Sheanna whispered, "but don't let your guard down." As they approached the pedestal, a soft click echoed in the room. Alex's heart skipped a beat. From the shadows, a figure emerged, a tall man, cloaked in dark robes, his face obscured. Alex's pulse quickened. He didn't recognize him, but the air around him felt cold, like something dangerous was about to unfold. "You're too late," the man said, his voice smooth but full of malice. "The heart of Jor is mine now." Alex took a step forward, his fists clenched. "Who are you?" The man smiled, though it was more of a sneer than anything friendly. "I'm someone who's been waiting for this moment for a long time. I knew Sheanna would bring you here. I knew she would be desperate enough to use you." Sheanna's eyes widened, a mix of shock and anger flashing across her face. "You're a traitor," she spat. "You've been planning this all along." The man's laugh echoed through the chamber. "Not a traitor, just a survivor. Jor is falling apart. The heart belongs to the one who is strong enough to take it. And that's me." Before Alex or Sheanna could react, the man raised his hands, and a powerful surge of energy shot from his fingers, striking the pedestal. The heart of Jor trembled, its light flickering wildly. Alex instinctively moved to shield Sheanna, but before he could reach her, a force threw him back, sending him crashing into the stone wall. His vision blurred, but through the haze, he could see the heart, now dimming, the traitor's energy eating away at it. "No!" Sheanna screamed, her voice filled with rage. She rushed forward, her hand reaching for the heart. But as she did, the man stepped in front of her, his eyes glowing with power. "You're too weak to stop me," he sneered. But as the man advanced, Alex, still reeling from the impact, found the strength to push himself off the floor. Something inside him was awakening, something the heart had unlocked within him. With a roar, he launched himself at the man, and a blast of energy shot from his hands, sending the traitor stumbling backward. For a moment, the man faltered, surprised by the unexpected power Alex had unleashed. It was then that Alex realized the truth. The bond between him and Sheanna wasn't just about the heart of Jor. It was about the strength they shared. Together, they could fight anything. Alex and Sheanna stood side by side, ready for whatever came next. The fate of Jor, of Earth, and of the galaxy itself was still in their hands.